client's mentor. Roger is always a special person when it comes to mentoring people. All right. And I will just start with saying that today on the call, we are going to be doing it in a different way. So basically, I'm going to ask questions, like I'm going to ask Roger questions, of course, but just beyond that, right? I want you to specifically focus on finding those questions that you've been wanting to ask. One thing is, when you're on calls like this, it's easy for you to forget that you have questions because you didn't prepare to ask the question. But you sometimes had the question in mind, during the week. In fact, let me paint a clear scenario. Maybe while you were working, there were some challenges you faced. It's not even a possible thing that you were working and you didn't face any challenge. So those challenges that you faced, and you were asking questions in your mind like, how do I do this? How do I navigate this and all of those things? These are times to ask those questions. All right. Trust me, you don't know, or maybe let me say the kind of level of experience Roger has in this space. I won't be saying a wrong thing if I say over 15 years of working experience. You understand? So it's a lot of years of working experience, and I'm sure you can just tap and tap and tap. And by the time you tap, you won't be exhausted, you won't be empty. I'm talking about Roger. You will still be filled. That's how experienced he is. So let's just take this opportunity, ask questions, get things clarified for you and everybody in the community. So I'm going to start by, Roger, engaging you. I just want to open the floor, and I will let every other person take cue from what I'm going to be doing. So, Roger, what is your thought, about handling a beta session in terms of launching a product? So let me put it this way. We have different series of beta sessions. When you are launching a product, it could be open beta, it could be closed beta. Some in terms of nomenclature, we have alpha and beta and gamma and all of those sorts. But the point here is that when launching a product, you want to launch a product, you want to have like a very systematic and coordinated approach, right, to launching your product. So you want to first expose to a group of people, then to a wider audience, and then scale or launch at scale in that progression. So I mean, digging into your level of experience, how would you explain, all right? How would you explain to a newbie on ways to go about it? Let me just put it that way. Thank you.
Yeah, I would first say forget about the jargon. It doesn't really matter whether you call it an alpha or a beta or whatever. I'll unpack what those terms technically mean and how they're typically used. But for the most part, that language doesn't really matter. The thing to understand when you're launching something new is that there's a whole bunch of things, there's a whole bunch of unknowns, and there's things that you've baked into, there's assumptions that have been baked into what you've built or what you've learned. Then there's uncertainty, and there's things that you think but as soon as it hits the market, it never really survives. Like there's a whole bunch of complexity that you just don't know. And so the reason people ship product incrementally, so ship it before it's fully fleshed out and finished, is to try and learn those things before you invest too much time going down a path that's actually not going to work. So how do you work out what it is you need to ship to learn the biggest, to remove the biggest unknown from the product that you've got? So if the core part of the product, if there's like something fundamental, if it's completely new and novel, and you're not quite, people have said they will use it, but you don't really know if they do, and you want to just put something in front of them to see if they engage with it, that's typically where you would launch like an alpha, like something that is it's like only just customer ready. It's more like an extended pilot. It might be a slightly open or a pilot to a limited things. You roll out a very first, like the single most valuable feature in its most simple form, and you roll that out and see if people will use it. And if people will use that, then that's typically more useful. You'll roll it out into a beta, which is a bit more polished, but still got some rough edges. And so you might have an open beta and say, hey, like you're trying to adopt the early adopters. If you're crossing the chasm, and the gap you need to get through, the first chunk is the early adopters. So can you put something out there that early adopters would use, that your average person, the laggards and the majority probably wouldn't adopt yet, but you want to put something out rather sooner than later to learn what you don't know. And so as you ship product incrementally, it's more about removing uncertainty, removing unknowns, and learning on how to improve the product to build something more valuable than waiting another 6 or 12 months, trying to build all the bells and whistles and all the features, and you launch with this super complicated product that is finished, but no one's using it. You don't know why, and you don't know which features they're using, or you haven't got proper tracking, or you don't actually know if the core product actually solves a real pain point or a real problem for the customer. So the reason we normally break down releases or into different versions, you might have like an alpha, might just be an internal test, or you're working with a single partner and you just build something for them to use internally and see if that kind of works. So it's more about removing unknown and uncertainty from what you're building and trying to learn where you're wrong as early and quickly as possible. And if you need to ship a half-baked product or like just the one core feature without the bells and whistles in order to learn that, that's what you should do. And building any more than that just means you're probably building a waste, because you're going to build something that ends up changing. And then if you've got a very fleshed out product, it's very difficult to make a big fundamental change. If it's just a very simple cobbled together product, you can make changes really quickly to it. So that's typically why you ship in smaller increments, is so that you can learn faster. And that's the whole agile build, measure, learn of the lean startup, is how do you learn? How do you increase the rate of learning? And often by shipping not quite fully fledged products, or like very focused products focused around the uncertainty, you can learn significantly faster. I think.
Yeah, thank you so much, Roger. Thank you so much. I would want to find out if there's anybody on the call who have like maybe a follow-up question concerning what I asked just now, before I try to like maybe go to the next question, just in case you have a follow-up question. I'm going to be giving like 15 seconds, counting. All right, and while I'm counting, right, I would also want to say that you can use the chat box to ask questions. All right, you can use the and tool on the and icon, right, to also indicate that you are interested in asking questions. Another way you can ask questions is that you can use the Q&A section or tool, right, on the activity icon. All right, to ask questions either anonymously or by revealing your name, anyone you are interested in. The most important thing is that we get the questions coming, and of course, Roger can attend to the question as well. So while I am waiting for that, I would want to go to the next question, Roger, for you. So one thing about market launch, again, that I'm quite aware of is the fact that a lot of times there is this confluence between who should like be in charge of planning a product market launch, especially in an instance where you have like a product manager, all right, and you have a product marketing manager, the same company. Sometimes it might not be a product marketing manager, it might just be a marketing manager or whatever marketing role and hierarchy that person is holding at that point in time. And you're about to launch a product. Some people are of the opinion that it should be solely the marketer that is doing that market launch or plan, right? Some people are of the opinion that it should be a collaborative effort. What I'm trying to get here is that when things like this, or when you get to a stage like this in your product market activity in your company, all right, based on your own experience, what is the best way it should be done? And what has been the most proven and effective way of doing this for you, right? That's the question.
Yeah, so I think it's going to depend completely on the team, the culture. Like if you have a senior marketing person and you're a mid-level or junior PM, like you'll learn so much by following them and stepping in, kind of supporting them on the launch, and instead of you trying to own it. So yeah, I don't think there is a single answer of what the right way to launch it is. I think both parties can bring a lot of value to the product. I think a lot of the times the marketing people, they don't actually understand core value. And so as the PM, the contribution you bring is understanding the core value and the research and why you're actually solving this, what problem, what underlying need it's actually addressing when you ship this feature, so that you're not advertising the feature. You're not advertising the feature, you're advertising the real need of what you're actually solving. Like, people don't want they don't want a drill, they want a hole in the wall, but they actually don't want a hole in the wall either. They want a picture hung. And so it's about, like, are you selling the picture? Are you selling the hole? Or are you selling the drill? Like, are you trying to sell the outcome? Are you selling the problem? Or are you selling the solution? And typically it's better to focus on the outcome, on what they're trying to achieve, make their house look beautiful, put the picture on the wall. We have a great way of how you deliver that. And so typically marketers will understand that, but they won't actually have the data and the research and the thought process into why you built this product in this way, which segment it's actually applicable for. You've got all the grounding for that. And so working with the marketers is, I would always say, a collaborative environment is going to be better. In most cases, it depends on culture and things, but in general, you want to work together. Who takes lead on it? I don't think that really matters. I think it depends more on how the company is structured, whose OKR it sits more under, like who's more responsible, who's more senior, that sort of thing. But yeah, ultimately you have different things that you can bring to it. They have the mechanisms and the, like, Google ads and the different channels and the value of different channels and how to shift language or communication or the messaging across those different channels. You come with a deep understanding of why you've built what you've built and what problem it actually solves. And so it's a bit of a balance of those two, of how do you communicate your learnings and what you know in the way that they can effectively deliver that against channels. So I would say it's a dance with both of them. Whoever takes lead, I think, is more dependent on the team structure, but there's value that both teams bring to it. It's not just your responsibility or just their responsibility. As a company, success should never just be one person's responsibility.
Awesome. One key takeaway from this is that, one key takeaway from this is that it doesn't really matter who is in charge or who takes the lead. What matters is the value at the end of the day, right? And the fact that team structure is always different, and of course it will always be different, right, based on organizational preferences and structure and all of that. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Richard.
I would generally optimize for effectiveness over ego. I think it gets your career a lot further.
every day. I get that. All right. There's a question in the Q&A section, and this question says, from an anonymous, of course, person, is there a maximum number of features an MVP should have? Over to you, Roger.
The maximum number is as few as possible, but no fewer. MVP is a minimum viable product. So what you need to look at is, like, what is the minimum product that we can deliver to make it viable, to actually solve the problem the core problem that we're trying to solve. And so when you start looking at it like that, there's a lot of stuff that you can strip out that is nice to haves. But the way I generally think about this, so for the first version you want to ship, you say, what can you take out? Like, if I remove this feature, if I remove Facebook login, will this product still deliver the value we're intending it for it to deliver? Like, why are we building this thing? We're building this to help people achieve that. If I take Facebook login out, will it still work? Like, will it still deliver that value? If yes, leave the feature out. Will I take these fancy reports out? If I take them out, does it still deliver the core value? If yes, leave it in. So it's more about, like, seeing how much you can take away and still deliver that core value, still make it a viable product to deliver. Like, what is the minimum viable product that you can ship? And so it's less about how many features or, like, how fully fledged that is. If you're launching a consumer product, it normally needs to be a bit more polished because they're going to be much more picky about what it is. But ChatGPT launched with, like, one of the worst interfaces I've ever seen. It had, like, this really weird chat that you had to ask in, like, very particular ways, and people have been, like, literally spending the last 9 months trying to reverse engineer how to put effective prompts in to get information out of it. Like, I would have said that's probably a little bit too minimal, but it's fine, and it's $100 million business. It's like, or more than that, whatever it is. It's made $100 million in revenue or something. I don't remember, but so it's often the minimum of MVP is a lot less than you think it is. Generally, for consumer products, it needs to be a little bit more polished. For business products, you're normally solving a much bigger problem, And if you're solving that core problem, you can strip everything else out and they'll still buy it, because it's something that actually makes money, it affects their bottom line. Like there's lots of things that they're willing to compromise on, or that they have teams that they can do around your product for you to deliver the core value. So typically you can strip away more than you think, but it's less about number of features and more about are you still delivering the core value if you remove this page or this aspect or this thing, and run through your entire like task list and say, if we take this out and do this later, can we still deliver value now? So that would be it. Anonymous, let me know if
Awesome.
I didn't answer your question.
Thank you. Yeah, awesome. I'm sure the answer like is rightly delivered, and everyone has gotten one or two things right from there. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I can see Yvette. I don't know if I pronounced your name well, but I can see her clapping. Please, we can always do that. I mean, after a particular question has been answered, I mean, we don't have to wait till the end of the call. Let's show that as like a way of appreciating Roger, as he delivers this nugget to us. All right. So I'm going to go to another question I have for you here. And this question goes thus. Mitigating risk in product management is not well talked about. All right. And this person put it this way. There are technical risk, there are market risks, there are competitors' risk, and in fact, there are emotional risk. I don't know what that means, but I mean, there are emotional risk. That's so technical, market, competitor, and emotional risk. So the question from the person is, how would you explain risk in product management, and how would you advise an early product manager, like a very young product manager, all right, to handle risk management in their early career?
I've dealt with this. I've dealt with this a lot. I've coached a lot of startup founders, and they deal with the same thing. So let me I'll pull that analogy and then pull it back to product. But the value of a startup is kind of this hockey stick that goes up and to the right. That's kind of what everyone assumes. But the only way to increase your value as a company, as a startup, is to decrease risk. It's directly proportional. As you decrease risk, your value goes up. And so the order of risks that you need to remove when you're building and launching a new business or a new product are all actually the same. You have the first one is, do people have this problem? Because if they don't have this problem, nothing else matters. And then if they have this problem, is there a solution to this problem? Because if you can't build a solution, nothing else matters. If they have this problem and they have a solution, then can you build the solution? Is a question. If you build it, will they use it? If they use it, will they pay? If they pay, will they pay enough to make the unit economics work? If they pay enough to make the unit economics work, is there a big enough market to scale a business into it? So like those are the questions that you need to run down, but it doesn't help to try and work out, will they pay enough to make this work, if you don't even know whether it's a problem or whether whether you can actually solve the problem. Because you need to start with those risks first. Like the most existential risks are customer problem risks. And so when we look at like tools to use, you start looking at like a value proposition canvas. So start with the value proposition canvas around like solution design, customer problem, pains and gains, customer solution, feature set, gain creators, pain relievers. So this strategizer is a great template for that. But that's very much focusing on those very first problems of what is the problem we're solving? Can we actually solve the problem? What data or evidence or interviews have we done to unpack and show that we actually have data to validate that we can remove that risk? And so typically as a startup goes, it's like whether you can hire a team is like a risk, but it's a much smaller risk, much further down the line that you can solve when you're a much more valuable company. Like right in the beginning, it's like if you're not solving a meaningful problem and can't build something people will want, nothing else matters. And so when you start thinking about risk, think about like competitor risk. Is there a risk of our competitors taking this over? It's like, well, if the market risk, if there isn't a need in the market, there's no risk for competitors. So the market risk is more important, right? The competitor risk doesn't matter if there isn't a market. Your emotional risk doesn't matter if there isn't a market. So let's start with like the risks that matter first, the biggest risks. And you don't have to completely discount or completely ignore the other risks, but don't assume that they're equal. Like not all risks are equal. And so depending on the maturity of the product you're building or the business you're in, there'll be different types of risks that you need to be focusing on. But as long as you're clear on which risks are more important than other risks, and those should be the ones that you're optimizing for and trying to solve for and build for initially. And so you think about like what needs to be true for this to actually win, and then what is the order of things, like which matters. If I could choose between this risk or solving this risk or that risk, I could only pick one. Which one would I need to solve first? And then that's the one that you need to focus on first. And so when you start thinking about risk, it's less about like the categorizations of risks and those sort of things, but more looking at like what might kill this startup, what might make this product launch not work at all, like what needs to be true for this to really take off. What are the fundamentals? Because you can even build a great product and launch it, but miss a key thing that actually makes it work in the long run. Like we had to build network effects right in the beginning. And if we don't do that, this is never going to become big enough to make this viable, so it doesn't make sense at all. So that's the risk. We're going to work out how to deliver network effects on a small scale before we actually throw a whole bunch of funding and do a big fancy launch, and try and bring in another 10,000 users. Because if we don't have those network effects, it's all just going to be a leaky bucket. We're just going to lose all those leads. So optimizing for those sorts of things of like how you validate what you need to do, and ultimately what you're optimizing towards in startup land is towards product market fit. So where you have a product that fits the market, that the market is pulling out of you, and ultimately that's driven down by strong referrals and high retention. So you look at engagement, retention, acquisition, and activation rates. So those are like the 4 key metrics that you're building towards product market fit. But those are all much later stage. The first thing you need, like, how do I know, what evidence do I have, i.e. data, do I have that people really want this problem? Or what evidence do I have that if we build this product, they'll use it? And you can test that through landing pages or through various things. So there's various ways of running experiments in order to remove risk, in order to test the hypothesis that you're trying to build. And so you need to think like, what are the risks, or what are the hypotheses? What are the things that need to be true in order for this to work? What are the most important ones? And then how do I run experiments to start testing that? Or how do I go find the data in our analytics tools or in whatever to actually back that up and verify that we can move through this order of risks? If that makes sense. Any follow-up questions? I jumped around a bit there.
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much for that answer. I have like it's not a follow-up, it's not a follow-up question, but let me just, there's this question, right? How does a newbie know the specific resource to use? How do they know the good one to take, right? So I think the questions are the same thing, but it's in a way too, like they look different. So how does a newbie know the specific resource to use? How do they know the good ones to take, like maybe resources to use, like boot camps to attend, and all of those things? What should they look out for? That's the question.
I'm going to dodge this question too. I think the answer is it depends. It depends on what you're trying to be. So, I mean, I've written I believe that you should try and structure your PM career like a Christmas tree. And I'll drop an article if you want to read a bit further on it. But basically, in the early days, start going really narrow. Like start being deep. So when you're an associate PM, like this product is so broad, you can't know everything. So what can you specialize in? Is it customer research? Have you come from a CS, a customer support background where like customer research and understanding is going to be your jam? Or have you got a design tint that you can move into product design, or an analytics tint and you can focus on analytics? But don't try and compete as a generalist PM knowing everything right in the beginning, because you just can't. But by skewing your career and by being really deep and narrow in one area of it, when a company is looking for junior PMs, all junior PM roles or associate PM roles have very different flavors, and different company cultures need slightly different shaped people for it. So for the people that, if you're very strong in analytics, people are more likely to go, oh, we need someone who's really strong in analytics, we can teach them the other stuff. Instead of taking someone who's kind of averaged everything that doesn't really stand out against the other 100 applicants. So typically by trying to skew your career in the beginning. So looking for resources, identify what it is you want to kind of specialize in, like where do you want to build the core depth in what you're building, and then looking at how do you where might you learn that? And it could be on YouTube, or it could be on a course, or it could be whatever. But I would say there's a base level understanding around, if you've got no experience, like doing any of the entry level courses, to get language, or to get the right language or phrase, like what is agile, what is scrum, what is a retro, like how do you write user stories, like what is a PRD, like to get the basic grounding of that stuff. But once you've got that, the very basic grounding of the key concepts, work out how, like, where do you want to specialize initially? And once you specialize, then you kind of get to a mid-level career. And that's when you can start jumping around and switching jobs and trying building a bit more breadth in your experience. And once you've got a grounding and you want to start, like you really enjoy fintech, or you really enjoy remittances, or you really enjoy like hardware or whatever that is, or logistics, will kind of be something that you start specializing in. And as you spend more and more years in that career, you're going to start specializing more and more in that particular sector or industry or crypto, or whatever it is. And then eventually when you get to the peak of the tree, you're going to have much deeper experience in a very particular area than anybody else on the continent. And that's what starts making you very competitive. So typically build your career like a Christmas tree is the short answer. The link that I dropped in there unpacks that in a few more words with a pretty picture.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for that answer. And at the same time, guys, you can check the link, read this article. I'm sure you're going to gain a lot from it. I know Roger writes a lot, and he writes so very well. So yeah, I'm sure you are going to get a lot from it. All right, Roger, moving to the next question. What are the unique challenges? Let me see. I like this question. All right, let me take it again. What are the unique challenges you've encountered when scaling products? Roger, I think one thing I want to emphasize before I even finish reading this question is that I think this person wants it to be personal. This person wants to like kind of learn from your experience, because I mean the person mentioned that what are the unique challenges you have encountered, right? When scaling products, and what strategies have you found effective in addressing those challenges? And the person said, he said, I'm going to appreciate if you can use a practical scenario of one of the past products you've scaled before. Wow.
Sure.
This person really wanted to like just go into you and get everything that is gettable.
Okay. Yeah, so let me answer it very narrowly, and then let me know if you need me to answer a more general answer. So, I mean, a problem I'm running into right now. So about 4 months ago, I joined a startup called OK Hi, and we do address verification. So we do digital address verification. It's an SDK that a bank integrates, or fintech integrates into their apps. And when the user enters their address, we create a geofence. So we track in the background, we track how much time they spend around that location and create a digital proof of address without any interaction from the user. It happens all seamlessly in the background. So we're now like, we've got a couple of customers. I mean, when I joined 4 months ago, we were doing about probably about 5,000, 6,000 addresses a month. We're currently doing about 20 to 30,000 addresses per month. By the end of the year, we should be doing 100,000 addresses per month. So it's like ramping up pretty quick. With the customers that we're getting live now, probably by the end of Q1, we'll be doing 700 to 800,000 addresses per month. So it's like we're right in that like hyperscale rapid phase. And the biggest challenge we have, like hands down, the most complicated thing is we're a B2B company, right? So we're like this technical SDK. It's one very small slice in banks and fintechs and these large enterprises with tons of regulation and things. The biggest problem we have in like scaling is that we don't control when the customers actually go live. So we're sitting there, we can do the sale, you sign the contract, and one big customer, I won't mention the name, a Nigerian-based company that should be going live hopefully this Friday, has been ready to go live for almost 2 years. They've done pilots and they pushed it live twice to the App Store, and both times there's been a problem and they pulled it back from the App Store, and for like nothing related to us. It's all related to stuff that's happened on their side, or other parts of, because we're just one feature in a release, they pull the whole release because of something else, and then it never goes live again, and then they roll back to the previous version, and then we don't have any control over when customers actually go live, which affects our numbers massively and our fundraising and everything, but we have no control over our own destiny. So that's the biggest problem that I have right now. And that's like a B2B product marketing, biz dev, sales problem. So yeah, like, yes, it's technically like there's a product problem in there. It's not only a product problem, it's more like a biz problem as well in sales. But I'm looking at it from a product side. So, like, this is the biggest challenge to the business. What can we do differently as a product team? Or what do we build differently? Or how do we change what we're building in order to help mitigate that, or help optimize, or help speed that up? And there's a whole bunch of improvements and things that we're making. I released a new set of, I like hand wrote the developer docs and released a new set of developer docs 2 weeks ago, which is now live, which is like much more like easier onboarding, and it's for designers and PMs and how to test and run QA, and like it's much more comprehensive instead of just being developer docs. We've got we're refactoring the way in which our code and the SDK initializes and how it runs so that it's much easier and templatized, and we're handling a lot more of the edge cases than we used to. We changed our pricing on how we do what we do. I'm trying to work out what are one or two key features that we can launch sooner that's going to give more value to customers and incentivize them to ship faster. And so instant verification, which is going to be like a world first actually for address verification. I'm ramping that, like pulling that forward. We're starting to build it this quarter, hopefully to launch in Q1 next year. And if we can do instant verification and nobody else in the market, typical verification takes 2 to 8 days. If we can do it within seconds, like that'll be a complete game changer, and people will integrate us and prioritize us more. So I'm looking at like what is in my control in product to try and address the scaling problem of the business, because those kinds of problems are generally not just product problems, but product has a huge influence from a number of different angles, from documentation to process to features to a code structure to prioritization, like a whole bunch of things that we're influencing on how to deliver that better. And part of what I'm driving by trying to change that prioritization is to talk to as many potential customers or customers as possible and people in the space to get a much clearer picture of what actually incentivizes them, what actually works, what works well with other SDKs or technologies or other partners that they use, like people who've worked with Smile ID. I'm trying to interview a whole bunch of their customers to say, like, what did you like about it? What do you not like about it? What happens with other SDKs like this? How do we make this process go faster? And the more I can learn, the better product I can build, and the faster the business will scale. So that's like a B2B, a very narrow B2B technical SDK scaling problem that I'm banging my head against every day, and will be for the next probably 12 months until we're doing like millions a month. So yeah, that's the very narrow answer. Would you like a more general answer?
Thank you so much, Roger. I would want to say that I think having that narrow answer is better. I mean, for whoever asked that question, I believe the person is on this call. All right. And I mean, while I was listening to your answer to this question, I got another beautiful question that, this person literally asked a question I would have asked 3 years ago. I feel like I have the answer, but my answer is not the answer in that sense. So I would definitely read according to the way the person asked, and I would want to put a context to it because I'm sure the person did not really say it very well. So but I'm sure the person knows what he or she wants to ask, definitely. So, but I will try to put a context to it. And this is the question. So the person said, let me just read it. He said, what would you say one should watch out for in setting up a team when when the person is just starting out a lead role in product management, maybe as a lead product manager, a head of product, or whatever nomenclature that is. So the person said, would you rather be a team? Would you rather be a team cross-functional team, or would you rather be a team? No, sorry. Would you rather be a team functional team, or would you rather be a team cross-functional team? Yeah, that's the way. That's the question. So I think that what this person is really trying to get is the fact that sometimes I think in teams, in structuring your team, when you are like leading a product team or a company or something, right? When you have like a very large team or large team, you can section your team in such a way that you have functional team, maybe a team that is working on, maybe team A working on a particular product within the company, team B working on another product, and you can look at them that way. Or the other way around it is that you can look at them in such a way that the entire team works on one single product. They finish it, they move to the next and the next and the next. So that kind of team structuring approach, I think that's what the person is calling functional and cross-functional, right?
Yeah.
So
typically a functional team will be, most people on the team will have the same type of job or the same type of job description. So it'll be a bunch of back-end engineers or a bunch of front-end engineers or a bunch of like customer research and designers with one or two front-end people. So like, is your team balanced with all of the skills like design and back-end and front-end and DevOps and everything? Is that skill set on the team? That's a cross-functional team, so you can cross functions without leaving the team. Or do you have the team that is very homogenous, that most of the team members perform the same function? So they're all developers, or they're all like UX or research people or something like that. So that's typically how we would call it, a cross-functional versus a functional team. Look, I think there are scenarios when functional teams will deliver better, but I would say that's in like less than 1% of cases. And the cases when it does work better is when it's deep tech expertise. Like if you're trying to build a new blockchain, like you need a bunch of really smart, deep techy blockchain engineers on there. Yes, there's consumer bits that you'd need to build around it, and those maybe your app teams need to be more cross-functional with design and developers and stuff working more closely together. Like if you're trying to write a new Wi-Fi protocol or a driver for Wi-Fi things, by all means, like build a functional team. If you're trying to program CAD or CNC cutters or hardware stuff, like or medical devices, have a very functional team. You want a team with deep expertise that they can deliver a narrow scope incredibly well. But beyond that, time and time again, it's proven over and over that cross-functional teams build better, more robust products. Yes.
Richard, can you hear me? Someone just texted me. She said her network is a bit poor, but she has a better network now, that she would really love to like hear every bit of this particular question that you're taking. That can you just go back a bit?
Sure. I'll repeat a little bit. Sorry, I've also just checked my mic, so I realized I was using the wrong mic. I hope this is a bit clearer. So typically a functional team is like where most team members have the same skill sets or the same job type, like they're all developers, or they're all like back-end engineers or something like that. A cross-functional team has a designer and a front-end developer and a back-end and a DevOps, and like a much more mix of roles on it. And like time and time again, we see it in almost every single case. Cross-functional teams build better products and perform better over the long run. It's generally slightly, you have quite a lot of inefficiencies in it because not everyone is working at capacity on the problem at the same time. Like sometimes in the early days, you need more design and product, and later you need like more developers and shipping, and then right after launch, you need a lot more of the other stuff, and the developers move to like support mode. So because everyone's not being super utilized, it feels inefficient in the moment. But with functional teams, often it's like the roles are really clear, everyone just dives in, you deliver it. But it typically, what a functional team feels really good in the moment, but what you don't realize is you don't know, it's the unknown unknowns. It's the things that you don't know, you don't realize. And having a cross-functional team with diverse experience and even things like having diverse genders and diverse backgrounds and people from different regions on the same team or exposure to that builds much more holistic. Like you're thinking through problems and solutions, and you're hearing customer feedback from a bunch of different angles because everyone hears it slightly differently. You're interpreting it from your experience and you're understanding it slightly differently. And those differences build for more robust, globally applicable solutions than a one-side team that's all white males in Silicon Valley building an app that they just expect is going to work everywhere in the world until they come to Africa and realize that people don't actually have to pay for data. And that's a big thing. So it's like they don't even know that exists. They don't even know that that's a problem. With a cross-functional team, you're more likely to have somebody says, oh, hold on, we need to build this data light. We need to take these sort of scenarios. Like I've come from Mexico and we need to take these scenarios into account. So like for all 99% of the cases, a cross-functional team will perform better over the long term. So that's kind of where it is. I would always try and optimize for that. Having said that, cross-functional teams are messier. It feels like there's more waste in the system. A lot of the times, like especially in the early days, developers need to sit in customer interviews and do like planning, and they're not writing code, and that feels inefficient. But the irony with that is, like, I love, and this is one thing I've changed at the company I'm in right now, is like, the developers are part of the planning process. They're in the workshops, they're inputting, because there's nothing more valuable. There's no more valuable use of their time than making sure we're building the right thing. If I go out and design something and then hand it over to them and they need to just build it, they don't have that context of what I've been making decisions and trade-offs and that sort of thing for. And so when they build it, they're just following my instructions and shipping what I do. But I don't know what I don't know about the code. There might be a much better way of, or much simpler way of solving a problem, or there might be a very different way of doing it. So instead of me writing a full spec and handing it over to them to deliver, I work with them to try and understand the nuances, understand the trade-offs, look at the customer data, understanding the customer's problem. And the closer you get the person who actually solves the customer's problem to the customer with the problem, the more likely is you're going to build a relevant product, a solution to that problem. And so like, having those developers like be part of those conversations, be part of these planning things, getting that context feels very wasteful in the moment. But with that context, they deliver more relevant product. They're more likely to build the right thing, and they're going to know what's important, where to cut corners. Because when you're building tech, the developers are making 1,000 decisions every day. Like, do I use this library or that library, or do I use this way, or do I write the code this way, or do I depend on this being always on or that always being on? Like, there's loads of trade-offs that they don't always communicate with the PMs. But by having them part of the initial process that sets up the project and sets up the context of what we're trying to deliver on and the value we're trying to deliver, they can be far more focused on making those trade-offs in order to deliver value, not just making those trade-offs in order to deliver on your spec, because your spec is probably wrong. In fact, I would say it is definitely wrong. We just don't know where it's wrong or how it's wrong. And so by working with cross-functional teams, it feels messier, but you all, like, in my experience, and it's been proven time and time again with design thinking and the whole rise of lean startup, and like small teams, small cross-functional teams, like startups, can build way better products significantly faster, significantly more relevant than any massive corporate that is broken into silos and broken into divisions. And they will beat them every single day of the week in building a more relevant and better product. Whether they can build a sustainable business model is a different story. But as far as product building goes, small cross-functional teams will always outperform it if you can get the setup right.
Awesome. That was very exhaustive. I need to, I need to shower you some claps. Yeah, before I continue. That was very, very exhaustive. Thank you so much for that answer. And that takes me to the next phase. I see a lot of questions coming in today, and I'm wondering how these questions are coming. I mean, that means, that's also a good sign. It means people are really, really working, and they're facing practical challenges. Let me put it that way, because this next question is very practical. This person said, I am currently working with a technology team in my company, of course, and I am one of the product managers in the company. However, I have the specific task of facing or building new products that the company never thought of. Literally, I am being challenged to innovate. There is no roadmap, there is no vision, there is no mission. That's like the way the question is, right? So there is no roadmap, there is no mission, there is no vision. However, I am expected to come up with new things every quarter. How do I innovate when the company has no specific and clear vision on what to do? That's the question.
So I think you're mistaking vision and mission with instructions. The vision and mission isn't going to tell you what to build. The vision and mission is going to tell you the problem space that the company is trying to solve. So the vision and mission is like to do X, to help financial managers save time and money, whatever that is, like whatever, or something more specific, something more. I mean, our vision and mission at OK High is to have the 4 billion people be included. So tons of people are excluded from capitalism and financial services and everything because they can't verify their address. There's 4 billion people in the world, or 45% of the population does not have a certifiable address. And because of that, they're massively excluded from a whole bunch of economic opportunities. So that's the problem we're trying to solve. Now, so a company should always have the vision and mission. Like the vision and mission for your product or for your, like the direction you're being given should not be any different to the company vision and mission. Any new innovation that you build should be a more effective way of solving or achieving that vision and mission without the constraints and the baggage of what you've currently built. So if you reframe it like that, thinking about like, what are we trying to win? Like, how does the world, the vision, where I often phrase like vision, mission, master plan is, what is the world we imagine? And that's the vision. It's like, we imagine a world where there is no poverty or there is no hunger. Okay, great. That's your vision. Your mission might be like, what do you need to be in order to solve that problem? So we're going to connect food waste with people that need it. We're going to connect all sources of food waste with people. Okay, that's our mission. The master plan is then like, how are you actually going to solve that problem? And another way of looking at it is to kind of unpack the dragon to slay. So what evil in the world, or what is wrong in the world that is stopping people from, that is stopping that vision from being a reality? So right now, the cost of logistics for food waste and coordination for food waste to get to the people who need it is too high. That's why grocery stores just throw the food away because it's too much hassle and it costs too much. It costs more than the value of the food to try and get it to the people who need it. So they just don't do that. So like that's like a great thing. Like once you've got that framing, you can then ideate and run a whole bunch of bets of how might we achieve this, or how might we solve that. So then you just want to follow like a straight up design thinking process around how you want to unpack that. And so that's like a relatively common like approach on how you think about it. Like design thinking is going to be your friend in this space. Follow it. Design thinking, like the empathize, understand, ideate, prototype, test, optimize, or like the design thinking flows. Like just go Google Stanford design thinking, and there's a whole bunch of like frameworks and tools and processes. IDEO.org has put out like tons of like new product development playbooks and that sort of stuff, like how to test and build new concepts, solving like really big meaty problems like refugees. Like how do we minimize refugees, or how do we get people out of being refugees? Like what might we be able to do that? And so that's the kind of problem they solve. And there's playbooks and all their handbooks and structure and process is all available online. It's IDEO.org is where you want to check it out. So yeah. So I'm just finding an article. I've got an article that breaks down that little template. I'm just going to drop that in here for you, of looking at, here we go, creating a vision and mission. So here's a template if you want an example. There's a post on how to do that. There's a little template with like vision, mission, dragon to slay, master plan, 6-month goals and focus areas. And that's what I used to run with like new startup development and innovation development at my previous company, at Founders Factory Africa. So yeah, there's definitely tools for this sort of thing. I would say that you definitely have a vision and mission. Like the company must have a vision and mission of like problem it's trying to solve. And if they haven't articulated it, you should probably articulate it and check it with the CEO. Like, is this ultimately what we're trying to do? And then use that as the context and the constraints that you start innovating within.
All right. Thank you so much, Roger. Thank you. I can see in the chat, but someone said Merlin. Whatever that is. Okay. All right. So I think we have like just 9 minutes more. Let me take this question.
Yeah.
And
so whoever asked that last question, like this is my jam. This is my space. Like new product development is what I've done for like the last 13, 15 years. So it's like I can talk about this for days. So if you have further questions, if you need help, like please just DM me. More than happy to help. I'll share some frameworks and reading and a whole bunch of stuff.
all right. Thank you so much for
I've
that.
literally run 3-day workshops teaching people to do this stuff. So,
yeah, you heard Roger, everyone. Thank you so much, Roger. And trust me, I'm sure people would like send you a message. All right. This question is very straightforward. This person said, you've been in the product management space for almost 15 years. It is not a myth and it is not possible that you have not failed. Can you give an example of a product you failed, right? Sorry, can you give an example of your product that failed in the market and what were the lessons and takeaways from that scenario?
So many. So from 2013 to 2018, I ran a startup studio that would take in entrepreneurs, help them work out what it is they need to build, and then have the dev and product teams to build it and take it to market. We built 50 products in 5 years, so about 10 products per year we were launching. We got really good at like launching and shipping really fast. So I mean, yeah, probably 90% of those products are not around anymore for a whole host of reasons. I mean, everything. So the smallest version of that, a guy came to me, his 2 sons were at university. They wanted to build this tutoring platform to match tutors, and he wanted to spend like $50,000 equivalent sort of. And he's like, oh, he's going to he's got a budget, and they were trying to like teach his sons entrepreneurship and like spend some money and build this platform. And I heard all the stuff they wanted. I jotted it down. I was like, I can build it in 2 weeks for you with one mid-level developer on WordPress, pull these themes together. We got it. We basically built it, shipped it in 2 weeks, got a payments booking platform, just WordPress and just like a whole bunch of plugins that we strung together. It looked pretty slick. It got the booking, it got the timetable, it's got everything. What happened is the sons got bored. They got it went into like the end of the term. They went off and partying on holiday. The one kid, one dropped out and didn't come back to university. The other one got like caught up in his studies, and the business never went anywhere. And it's like, I just saved the guy like $50,000 because he didn't do it. But that totally failed. Just so like founder motivation, founder teams, that sort of stuff is like one of the main reasons why building new businesses and new startups fail. Like just the incentives of the people that are actually driving it really matters. Probably the most important thing. Another case, one that we actually did a whole bunch of work for over about 2.5 years of stepping in and stepping out, and they were a booking platform for domestic workers. So like a Uber for domestic workers, where you can book a domestic worker, they come to your house, clean for a couple of hours, and then they leave again. And ultimately, what killed them there was just the 2 core things. Like the one was people just wouldn't pay enough to actually, like the margins were just too thin to make the business model viable. And the second one is the incentives are wrong, because if you like the domestic work, if you go on a booking platform and you get a domestic worker and you really like her, she will always make more money by going directly to you and bypassing the marketplace and just getting your phone number, and you pay her directly and she comes back. So there's a core incentive in the marketplace that anybody who's semi-successful leaves your marketplace and bypasses it and just builds those relationships. And they've got permanent work now. They don't need your platform. So it's like the whole thing kind of falls apart on like a core mechanism level. So that is more like the market dynamic, or the fundamentals that need to be true for this to work didn't work at scale. It just all fell apart. And so that coupled with the really tight margins, the business ended up going. It raised I think it was about $500,000 or $600,000, and eventually ended up just walking away from it, like shutting it down and walking away, just because that didn't work. So there's like so many reasons of why things don't work. Not validating the business model and building the wrong thing, or building something that people don't want, is the general theme that kills everything. Like if you build something that people desperately want, everything else will kind of work itself out. Well, I've been in scenarios where things have failed for almost every reason under the sun. But the one thing that it's less about the reason companies fail is because they don't get those fundamentals right. People succeed for very different reasons, and it's like success is actually quite hard to copy because it varies so much. But failure, is actually relatively common. Like not solving a real problem, not delivering it in a way that people can use it, or not getting a core market that loves your product strong enough, not having the right team that can deliver. Like there's like a checklist of 5 or 6 things that you need to get right in order to actually build successful products. And so the failures are far easier. The things that make failure true are far more consistent. but the things of why people succeed is like far more varied and very luck driven. So it's far harder to copy success and far easier to avoid specific failure.
All of your answers to questions that I've asked today, I mean, they've been spot on, they've been excellent and beyond,
I've tried to dodge a couple.
beyond comprehensive. Yeah, beyond comprehensive actually. Thank you so much. And of course, I won't be saying goodbye because I know in just 2 weeks we are going to see you again. So yeah, Roger, thank you so much for today.
I'm busy firming up my Nigeria trip actually. So sometime around the 14th, I've got something I need to be in Nigeria on the 14th of November. So I'm going to plan to sometime around then, that like week or so around that, I'll be there and I'll organize a meetup in person or drinks or something, and we can come and chat.
Definitely.
Meet you guys.
Definitely. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you so much everyone for joining. That is one thing I usually say about the group mentorship session. It's a time where you cannot predict what questions could be asked and what answers could be provided. Sometimes you are not even the one that is asking the question, but you are in the current situation and you just you hit a jackpot because someone asked for you, and you can just take the answers and the lessons. All right. So we do this every 2 weeks, and we in the coming week we are going to be switching into our other program, which is not in this case the group mentorship session, but the mock interview session. All right. So you can always join. All right. And I'm sure you are going to learn one or two things in all of these things, especially if you're in a current phase where you need to really, really gather a lot of information. All right, before you hit the market. And I would say that if you are currently working, the group mentorship session is not something you should miss. It doesn't really matter if you are a mid-level product manager or senior product manager. We have people that are more experienced that are handling the session. So, I mean, you will definitely gain something. And of course, we have our weekly Friday calls, or Saturday calls, right? This Saturday, it's coming up again, where you come and tell us what your day was like or what your week was like. And, you open up to your colleagues literally, and, you have someone to just, how will I put it, embrace you and, just give you a warm virtual hug so that you will not faint while doing the product management job. So we are looking forward to seeing you guys on Saturday, and hopefully I will see someone that will narrate how amazing the week was, and at the same time someone that will narrate how stressful their first job, as a product manager was, or their first week as a product manager was, because I'm sure that we have all of the people in this community. All right, thank you so much for joining, and it's good to have you. See you next week, and please, as you are leaving, just keep on appreciating Roger. Keep on appreciating Roger. Roger is a very awesome and amazing mentor. Thank you, Roger, for having us, for teaching us, for training us. All right, see you next week, Roger.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Or next 2 weeks. Yeah, bye.
I don't always have the answers, but I'll always give my opinion. So I can also be wrong. Just little disclaimer in the bottom there.
All right.
Cool.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers, guys.
All right.